first slave owner in the colonies, Anthony Johnson, forgotten history.
Y'all want to be messed up real quick? Y'all know he's black though, right?
With a name like Anthony Johnson?
He's been saying this for weeks now.
I've been messed up. I messed up.
How did you find this video?
TikTok.
Wow.
And Officer Tatum.
OT.
So people are saying that the first slave owner in America
He actually pushed for it apparently.
was black.
Wow.
Yes.
That sounds like some hidden history to me, because
This is
I didn't even know they were black slave owners until we got on YouTube.
this is factual information.
This channel is pretty factual.
Can I have a quick Google real quick?
Yes,
I don't have my phone. You're going to have to fact check everything today, B-Rock.
Let's see if we can find that.
Owner.
He's gonna pop up. I tried to do. I was messed up. Anthony Johnson.
It popped up?
Yeah, multiple times.
Oh, wow.
He's a black man, bro. He got the bit. He got.
What did it look like? What did it look like?
Shit.
He looked kind of like you.
Shut up.
Actually, bro, I'm gonna show
Both
y'all
of them
too. This shit's crazy.
That's
Yeah.
Franklin Douglas over there. Though.
Frederick.
Frederick. I said
I
Franklin.
said Franklin.
Bro, I'm gonna show you guys this too, but I'm gonna show these guys.
Every black person living should go to Ghana and see them slave castles so you can see what they did to us.
Slave castles?
You got to see what they did to us. You got to see how they built these dungeons underground and they put these churches on top and they dug holes in the ground to pump the music of what they call their Christianity into the holes.
That shit's crazy.
I definitely would like to go see that one day.
Yeah, man.
That would be powerful.
We can go.
Did every single continent have slavery?
You're gonna see Brock Cousins out there.
Well, actually, literally, I just met one the other day.
You didn't see the slave houses in Thibodeau?
Nah, I've never been to Thibodeau.
Oh, he wasn't there. That shit was crazy.
The feeling being out there just feels so.
Yeah, I think it was on every continent.
Except Antarctica.
Europe, Asia, Middle East, and Africa.
What?
So y'all know how many continents there are?
7.
This is crazy, guys. Let's just go ahead and get into the video. Let's see what facts they have for gun history.
You wanna know what else is crazy too? He pushed for the law to happen too. Y'all finna be more messed up.
Yeah, that's definitely
press play on this.
forgotten
Let's get into
history.
this, bro.
While slavery existed in the American colonies through the establishment of the United States as a country until the end of the Civil War, there have been many misconceptions about slavery in general. Most Americans are not aware that there were some black former slaves and freemen who also owned black slaves, and some became very prominent in politics as well, despite the racial prejudice that existed. Some black slave owners inherited their slaves from their masters, who were themselves freed in their wills. Others were either born free or emancipated by their masters and then bought their own slaves, while others were able to buy their own freedom and that of their families. Who were these black slave owners, and how did they attain such a status in a white-dominated society? What set them apart from other blacks, and what made them comparable to whites in some of the colonies and later states? What changed in colonial society, altering the status of indentured servants to lifetime slaves? And why? Who was Anthony Johnson?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former soldier, Marine Corps Scout
Is that
sniper,
a nigger on
history
that nag?
professor, historian, and book author.
That's from
And we will answer these
That's from
questions and
Django.
other.
Anthony Johnson.
The vast majority of African Americans in the United States were enslaved, in all of the states, not just the South. Our first person of note is Anthony Johnson, who was born in Angola and captured by Portuguese slave traders, and he was given the name Antonio. Then his captors sold him into the Atlantic slave trade. He sailed to Virginia in 1621 aboard the ship James. The Virginia muster, or census, of 1624 lists his name as Antonio, not given, and he was recorded as a Negro in the notes column and indentured. Antonio, later Anthony, was bought by a colonist in Virginia, but treated as an indentured servant, which was not unusual, and Antonio worked for a merchant at the Virginia Company, and he became a Catholic. Johnson was sold as an indentured servant to a white planter named Bennett to work on his Virginia tobacco farm. Technically, he was not a slave, because the slave laws were not passed until 1661 in Virginia, so prior to that date, Africans were not officially considered to be slaves in that colony. According to the records kept by his benefactor and the existing documents, Anthony was nearly killed in the Indian Massacre of 1622 when the Powhatan Indians attacked colonists in the Tidewater region of Virginia. On Good Friday, they raided the settlement, including the Bennett farm, where Antonio worked, and killed 52 of the 57 men present. Antonio apparently fought back and was wounded and earned the esteem of his master. In
said you a
1623, a black woman named Mary arrived aboard the ship Margaret and John. She was brought to work on the same plantation as Antonio, where she was the only woman present. Antonio and Mary married and lived together for more than 40 years. Around 1635, Antonio and Mary completed their indentured servitude, and Antonio changed his name to Anthony Johnson. He first entered the legal record as an unindentured free man when he purchased a calf in 1647. During this early period, free blacks enjoyed relative equality with whites, and about 20% of the free blacks in Virginia owned their own homes and property.
That's crazy.
This is
In
crazy.
1662, the Virginia colony passed a law that children in the colony were born with the social status of their mother. This meant that the children of slave women were born into slavery, even if their fathers were free, European,
What?
Christian, and white. This was a reversal of English common law, which held that the children of English subjects took the status of their father. The Virginia colonial government expressed the opinion that since Africans were not Christians, common law could not and did not apply to them, even if they converted, as Anthony Johnson did. On July 24, 1651, Johnson acquired 250 acres of land under the existing headright system when he bought the contracts of 5 indentured servants, one being his son, Richard Johnson. Under the headright system, if a man were to bring indentured servants over to the colonies, and in this particular case Johnson brought 5 servants, he was owed 50 acres a head for servant. The land in question was located on the Great Naswata
50
Creek,
acres.
which flowed into the Punkateague River in Northampton County, Virginia. This was where Anthony Johnson operated his successful tobacco farm, and one of his indentured servants was John Casor, who became one of the first men to be declared indentured for life, effectively a slave.
Dang.
Under the 1645 Virginia Taxation Act, all Negro men and women and all other men from the age of 16 to 60 shall be judged tithable. So after a fire in 1652 caused him great financial damage to his property, he applied for relief in the courts and won. Back then, people were taxed, not property, but indentured servants and later slaves were taxed as property. It is unclear from the records why the Johnson women were exempted, but the change gave them the same social standing as white women who were not taxed. In the colonies back then, one was judged more on their religion as opposed to race or ethnicity in general, so until the advent of actual legal slavery, upward mobility was possible for many races. During the case, the justices noted that Anthony and Mary Johnson had lived in Virginia for over 30 years and were highly respected in their community. In fact, a 1653 Northampton County Court document lists Mary as Anthony's wife. By the 1650s, Anthony and Mary Johnson were farming 250 acres in Northampton County, while their 2 sons owned 550
This
acres.
is insane.
They also had additional indentured persons under contract, but the exact numbers are not known. His son Richard Johnson also had his own indentured persons, probably given to him by his father, who were effectively slaves with a shelf life. At some point, if contracted, they would have to be set free. In 1854, John Casor, who had been sentenced to indentured service for life for his escaping a previous owner in 1640, filed a suit against Johnson, claiming his indentured service had expired, and he went to work for Robert and George Parker. Johnson filed a freedom suit to get Casor back, but Parker won. What is amazing in retrospect was that Johnson, a black man, was not only able to file a petition to the court, but he was able to testify and give evidence in the court, which illustrates the rather egalitarian system in place at that time.
Dang.
However,
crazy.
Johnson appealed to the County Court of Northampton County, Virginia, and the court reversed its ruling and sent Casor back to Johnson in 1855, and Parker was forced to pay Johnson compensation.
How was he
Then
winning all
Casor
this
made
shit?
history, as he was probably the first person who was declared slave for life in Virginia. That means that his black owner, Anthony Johnson, was probably the very first slave owner in all of the colonies, himself a black man. There were both black and white indentured servants, the whites being the most Irish of all, who, like the blacks, were also sentenced to lifetime servitude before Casor's case. The difference was that the whites could eventually purchase their freedom in most cases. Therefore, Anthony Johnson was apparently not only the first African American whose right to own a slave for life was recognized in the colonies, he was therefore technically the first actual legal slave owner, regardless of being black or white, as established by the Virginia court. Soon afterwards, slavery was legal in all of the colonies. Later, Johnson moved his family to Somerset County, Maryland, and leased 300 acres for tobacco farming for 99 years, which he called Torrey's Vineyards. When Anthony Johnson died in 1670, that August, his plantation was given to Robert Parker, not to Johnson's children. The justification delivered by an all-right jury ruled that Anthony's land in Virginia that was given to his sons could be seized because he was a Negro and by consequence an alien.
Wow.
As a
Damn,
result,
so he died,
the
they
50
started-
acres that Anthony had given to his
Starting
son
getting
Richard
uglier.
wound up in the hands of his wealthy white neighbor George Parker.
Damn, that's
It
messed
didn't
up.
matter that Richard, a free man, had lived on the land with his wife and children for 5 years. A judge then had ruled that Anthony Johnson, as he was not a citizen of the colony because he was black, but he did own his own slaves, could maintain his property.
Wow.
What soon arrived after Johnson's death was a system of legal slavery in which enslavement was lifelong, hereditary, and based solely on race, and effectively established in all of the colonies in the beginning of the 18th century. As a result, Johnson has been referred to historically as the Black Patriarch of the first community of Negro property owners in America. He was the first black slave owner to be involved in a court case that resulted in an indentured black man, John Casor, to be legally determined as a slave for life.
Messed up, man.
In effect, because hereditary slavery was not in effect during his period of ownership of Castor, the slave for life and others he purchased, it is arguable that Anthony Johnson was in fact the first actual slave owner in the American colonies, and he was a black man.
I definitely am wondered like how he treated them. Like,
Yeah.
if he had so many of them, like, you think he was treating them good? Like they were.
Oh,
just,
how
like,
he treated them?
Yeah, how he treated his like
Oh, his
indentured
slave-
servants.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
He probably treated him like how his first master probably was.
But
It's
like,
hard
did
to
they
really
ever
say.
mention in the video, was he treated bad? Like
No,
with
I think
the submission
they
and
said
stuff?
he was treated a little better with the dude who bought him in Virginia because he made him an indentured servant instead of a slave. That's why he eventually got his freedom.
But didn't they say like this was before slavery was a thing? Because
Yeah.
you know, indentured servants, he said, has a
Yeah.
shelf life, so that means like their servitude ends.
Yeah. So I think the way they made it seem like it was actually before slavery, it wasn't as racist. It was more, what religion are you?
Yeah, no.
And
I
that's
think
how they would discriminate.
Yeah, I think they were like he had indentured servants, which was before slavery was established. Because after slavery was established and he died, they were saying like
Then they
because he was
started-
black,
yeah.
all the stuff that he accomplished and
Yeah.
it was
They gave
it
it to
was
the neighbor.
It was like it was over with because he was black, so
Yeah.
it doesn't mean anything.
So they
and
started
black
being
people
more
were
racist
less.
when he was dead.
Yeah, it started being more about race after he died. So everything he did didn't matter. That's crazy. That is actually insane.
Yeah, I seen a lot of messed up stuff in this video.
Yeah, it messed
It's
me
kind of like it just seemed like that was the way of life. Like that was the way of people having power.
Societal norm.
I mean, yeah, it was a societal norm. It
Now
was like the way
it's
things
totally
were.
like it's just messed up. But back then they might not have thought it was crazy at all. Like
They didn't.
Yeah, no,
That's
they said it was
crazy.
egalitarian when there was like indentured servitude, but once slavery started to become established and it was built off race, all the things that they did as a black man was like null and void, basically. Like it doesn't matter. Like, oh, he's black, he's not a real citizen of the colonies, so his land and all the stuff he built is irrelevant. The white people can come take it. That's crazy. That's basically what they said, is it not? Like,
Yeah.
so.
yeah.
The people that had indentured service, they didn't call that legalized slavery. So
Yeah,
that's
you have
why,
a year period.
Because
they had to
because
give them
the
an
servitude has like a time period, so you're gonna be an indentured servant for 10 years, but once the 10 years up,
Yeah.
you free.
So when
That's
he made that
basically-
one guy a full time,
He was the first one.
They said that was his punishment because he ran away from the people,
Mm-hmm.
and then he was like, "Well, I'm supposed to be free because I was working for him, so I'm not supposed to work for you." So he was like, "Nah."
see, but that's
let's
what
go to
makes me
court.
not want to give him a pass though, because it's like you still did something more messed up after. Because like back then, I could see like, okay, that was just the way of living. I could really be like, okay, there might not be bad people, but now that you know, when the guy ran away, oh, so he didn't make that punishment. Someone else made that
They
punishment.
went to court. You know,
Yeah,
he
he
was
fought
like,
with
to court.
Yeah, he said he went to court, and he brought
that's
evidence
fucked
and was
up.
like,
Oh,
look,
that's
this
fucked
is
up.
my servant. But the dude was like, no, I'm supposed to be dude's servant. But the guy, Anthony lost, and they was like, yeah, you do belong to the man that he says he belonged to, but since you ran away, your punishment is you a servant for life now.
The first slave.
So technically, he's the first slave for life. Like now, you a servant for life since you ran away. Isn't that what they said happened?
Yeah, I think.
And then
But
I
think
think
about,
Parker
like-
had to pay them too.
But they said that like it's crazy that like as a black man he was able to go to court and like present his evidence and like fight like for what.
Yeah, that is.
That's crazy because like once slavery came along, black people wasn't even allowed to do that.
They
Like,
didn't even let his son go to court for his dad's property.
yeah, facts. That the property that he bought and built, they said since his son is black and was bought by a black man, the white people can take it. Black people not worth equal to us. That's crazy how they just like switched up and put that into place. But I guess that's how they like maintain
wanted
the
eat.
power.
Back
That's
then,
how they maintain
also
the
a lot of
power.
stuff wasn't built. So I can see if you don't have a lot of people working on something, you not having no motion. Think about like
Yeah, that
up
is
north,
have motion,
like up north it's cold as hell. So when people came to Jamestown and they landed up there, it was cold as hell. So you need some people to work fast so y'all can get some shelter. Imagine us just going, trying to build some shit. That might take a little second.
Yeah.
So you need some people.
workers. Yeah, ain't no
Damn.
machines.
Jamestown's in Virginia?
Yeah.
That's the South, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like the Southeast,
Jamestown-
really, because they on the Eastern time zone.
It was just in. I think Virginia was just in the 13 colonies, but Jamestown. I don't know where. Jamestown
But they still
is.
get cold in the winter.
really.
Yeah, no, it gets
No,
cold
it
up there.
definitely
They get
gets
snow.
cold.
Imagine
What
you
state is
outside.
Jamestown?
They
I
get
thought
snow.
Jamestown was in Virginia. I
It
thought.
is, yeah, but
Oh, yeah.
Virginia gets snow. It gets cold.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Gettysburg.
So yeah, that was a way of just having motion. I guess that is crazy.
Yeah, no,
That's a way to think about
it's
it.
crazy how like they like just made it like since there were so many black slaves, they were like to keep the power over them. They're not equal to us, and they're not citizens. They're property. So like even though bro was free, like the laws applied to him, even though he was free and did all them good things. And it
Well,
was like
for you people out there that think the world is
pretty
getting worse, this shit just changed my mind.
They
Like,
just
you be
took
thinking
his
like,
power.
oh, God's coming. This shit's
But we
getting
need to
worse.
read the book. We need to read the book.
That
Y'all need to
is
read the
terrible.
book Kindred, bro. It's about all this. It's like one of the best books I ever read.
it's called what?
Kindred. Kindred.
Oh, Kindred.
Yeah.
Okay.
We read it in school.
I don't know
Remember,
how
I read
I
it in
can
2
get no
days
worse
in
than
the
that.
edge.
What school you read?
At UL.
Oh, for real? What class that was?
I can't remember. It was my undergrad.
I think people be making laws and then they see one or two words and try to like screw it so it could benefit them. That's pretty much what a lot of people have been doing.
What you mean?
Johnson owned his son. Remember? So his son
I
was
was messed up
considered.
about that for a second.
So his son is considered property. So they was like, and then he was married under his wife. So his wife was like, anybody that's under your mother is considered what she is. You know what I'm saying? So,
Oh, yeah.
so like,
So he was property.
Yeah,
That's
so-
probably why they took
They
his
say he was
land.
an indentured. He was indentured. The son was indentured because his son later owned slaves too.
That was pretty crazy how they said he has so many acres though, like 550 acres.
That's a
I mean, he
lot.
was
Y'all
trapping.
messed up. Like, how the hell did
Massive.
he went from a slave?
Then they said he
So,
moved on from his 300
having
acres to go
slaves-
having another 330 acres
You
of
know what?
tobacco farming. That's insane.
You know
That's
what
a lot
probably
of
happened?
land.
He probably like, I'm probably tripping, but
I hate to
he's
say
turning
it.
some of the black people and when they got free, they'll just keep getting so much land and just kept getting land. People like, oh, hold on, it's becoming a problem.
Well, I don't think that's
That's
what it
when the
was.
slavery
They said
came.
slavery came, and then they made it where, like, in order to, I bet this is probably how I'm interpreting it. In order to keep the power over the slaves, black people, because there's so many black slaves, they're not equal, they're not citizens, and they're property. So since they're black, they fall under that. So when he died, they said since he's a black man, he's legally not a right, he's not a citizen. So like his property is free game. That's why it didn't go to his son. And then it was like since his son is black, he can't own property, and it went to his wealthy white neighbor, which is why they seized all the stuff he built.
Yeah,
So
nah,
that happened in
this makes me have a
1670 when
different
slavery became a
perspective.
thing with black people. Isn't that what they said?
Because like the way we talk, like every slave owner was like, I hate you, rah. But it probably was actually some good ass slave owners, and it's just that was just the way they had motion. Like, you know,
I think the history of
Bad
slavery.
apples and good apples.
I think the
there.
history of slavery. I'm not gonna say bad apples and good apples. I mean, it's like really a dark history, but it's
But
a
it
lot
was a
of
societal norm.
like, I want
That was
motion.
the way of business.
I really want motion.
It was the way
but
of
I'm a good
business, but
person.
the way slaveries were like beaten to submission and all the bad things that
Yeah, that
happened
was
under
horrible.
slavery.
No,
Like
no,
No,
it's
see,
really
but that could have been just the bad apples.
But how do we know how many bad apples and good
And
apples?
we don't know.
It
We don't
could have
know.
been
I don't.
99% bad
Most of the
apples.
time, okay.
But-
This,
We don't
why,
know.
this is why I say that, because most of the time when I hear about the history of slavery, I don't ever hear about the good, like
no, you
the
never heard
good
about
slave owners. I've never heard a good story about a good slave owner. Maybe he was the first good slave owner and he treated those
Might
people
be
good.
why
That's
this
why.
ain't
That's
this
why I said
doing that.
That's why I said how did he treat them? Because a lot of time when I hear about slave owners, I just hear about like how they had to like beat people into submission.
I hate you because you're black.
All the bad
I
practices they
definitely
had.
think- Yeah. There was definitely slavery was horrible. Most slave owners
Oh, it
were
was terrible.
definitely probably horrible, but there was definitely probably some cases where
He
slave
just wanted
owners
some
were
motion,
not-
and
yeah.
For sure.
my guy
it was
over
like
there
a
got
business
motion.
thing. Like,
Like,
that's property. This is how you get your business going. This is how you maintain your business. And at the time, they wasn't paying people. You get free labor. So really, it's all profit for you as an owner. So like when they start getting out of line, you gotta get them back in line because that's messing up your
But
business.
you got to put fear in some of them though. So I could
So I
see.
mean, I don't know. It just
You
know
know,
they had
it's
some
a messed
terrible
up
ways.
situation. on both
It's,
sides.
it's real messed up.
It's
But
messed
like
up.
when you look at it from a business standpoint,
yeah, it's hard to like really judge the person off.
shit. No,
you
I'm
know,
judging for sure.
it's kind of like because it's like you seeing everybody else have motion, they pulling up in wagons and shit.
But like we
With all
just
the
saw
horses,
that
like,
TikTok.
I got slaves.
They was
And
doing the
you
same
trying to be
thing in Africa.
a
Yeah,
blacksmith
facts.
and shit. And
Because
that's
they
how
had to
slaves
work
came.
that land.
And now who
that
was
was the
having
only way
motion?
for them to have motion.
Yeah. It's real
Motion means a
interesting.
lot of money, guys. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys. Well, we learned something on this one. Definitely.
Definitely.
I'm messed up about that.
Definitely.
You guys let us know if you guys find any more good videos. Put them in the link right here. We're going, guys.